about a job candidate who wants more salary than you can offer? Or how about a teenager who wants to stay out a little later than you think is wise? We all have to negotiate at different points along the way. And your job as a manager and leader, and oftentimes at home, is to be able to move through that negotiation process in a way that gets to the other side where people can agree to some type of a solution through bargaining. Now, if you could use a few strategies or tips and techniques in order to help you with your negotiation skills, you've come to the right spot. Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Cawley from the Delean Institute for Growth and Wellness. And our conversation this month is all around conflict resolution and negotiation, and some strategies and tips to help you through that. Now, conflict resolution and negotiation are very interrelated, but they differ too, because negotiation is really focused on bargaining for the short term. A few examples. You have a vendor that you're negotiating a contract with. They want to sell you something for a lot more money than you're willing to pay, and you want a contract that for the entire enterprise and benefits you over the longer haul. You're not in the same place right now with regards to your needs and desires, and that's where negotiation really comes up to play. So we all do have to negotiate at different points along the way in order to find a solution that we both can live with and agree upon. It's a little different from conflict resolution because although there is negotiation and bargaining and some compromise, what your goal as a manager or as a leader is for the long-term benefits, where you are helping to manage the emotions and allow people to work together in a productive, efficient, and effective way. If you have a lot of conflict and you just negotiate for a short-term solution, it might help in that very short term, but not for the long haul, and you'll be back at the table again. So let's focus on negotiation a little bit more. When we negotiate and we have to bargain, we're looking for some type of compromise that we both can live with and move forward on. And so that's called the best alternative to a negotiated agreement, or what is otherwise known as a BATNA, B-A-T-N-A. So your job as a manager and a leader is to help people navigate through the process of negotiation to get to that BATNA. Now, that BATNA could be a variety of different things. It could be getting a better contract negotiated that's enterprise-wide and a little bit cheaper for you if you do it for 5 years versus 3. Or it could be something as simple at home as negotiating between your 2-year-old and your 4-year-old on which game to play or which video to watch on TV. So let's talk a little bit about the process. Now, it's similar to conflict resolution, but there are some differences too. And one of my favorite models, and there's quite a few of them out there, one of my favorite models is a person over at Harvard Business School. His name is Lenny Marcus. And Lenny Marcus is a PhD who works at Harvard Business School. And he has a Center for Leadership that he has led for many, many years. And that institute actually uses something that's called a walk in the woods. And it comes from the fact that during the Cold War, there had to be a few walks in the woods to get to agreement about arms control. And so that's where a lot of this came from as far as the name of the process that Lenny Marcus likes to use. And it's a great resource. You can find it pretty easily if you look it up online. So with Lenny's walk in the woods, what he says is the first thing that you want to do is you want self-interest to come up. So as the two individuals are walking together, they're expressing what their individual goals, needs, desires, or wants are. And as they go through that process, they're also sharing what's non-negotiable for them. So, for example, you may think that it's okay for your son to stay out until 11 o'clock, let's say, on a Friday or Saturday night, but on a weeknight, he needs to be in by 10 p.m. He may feel that 11 p.m. works for every night, or even up to midnight on special occasions. That is a place where you differ and both have different desires or wants. And so you have to be able to come to a compromise and think through this as something that would work for both of you over the longer haul, or at least over the short term, right? Because negotiation is about that bargaining in order to get to a short-term alternative, your BATNA. So it's the self-interest that comes forth first. And each party is there explaining what their interests are. So if we go back to the contract with the vendor, they're explaining what they can do, what they can't do, what they're willing to do. And you can do the same. I think salary negotiations are a really easy example to look at. So say, for example, that you have only a certain amount that you can offer an individual based on your human resources policies. That's something that you're stuck with. But maybe you have the ability to give a signing bonus, or perhaps you could adjust the work hours, or maybe you could do a relocation bonus as well to sweeten the pot, make it a little bit easier for the candidate. The candidate's desire is to make sure that they can pay for everything that they need to in their private life. So if they have a certain salary amount that they need on an annual basis, then that's something that's going to be very important to them. So they may come in asking for a higher salary or base pay, not aware that you might have bonuses or sign-on bonuses or the ability to reward them a little bit differently with how they use their time. Or, for example, maybe work remote a couple of days a week rather than be in the office every day to save on travel costs. Or it could be that they get a relocation bonus. There's a number of different options that you have, but you're pretty clear. You can only amount to this amount of salary. They want this amount of salary. Somehow you have to figure out how to get to another place. So that's getting the self-interest out on the table. Then the second step is around ensuring that the enlarged interests are on the table. So it's not good enough for just for you to put your interests on the table. You have to listen to the other party. Or if you're managing the process between two parties, you need to be able to navigate and coach and guide that process to get to the other side, which means, just like in conflict resolution, coming to the table, calm, cool, collected, being able to set the tone, being patient, and making sure that you're de-escalating any emotions. You're also allowing each of the parties to speak their piece and be very clear about what their interests are. Now, the interesting thing from my perspective about this is it kind of takes me back to a saying that they have in the Native American language, which is, or in Native American world, which is around walking in somebody's moccasins. Like, you don't really understand where another person is coming unless you walk in their shoes. So this is where I find a walk in the woods really interesting, because you are literally walking with that other person to hear what their needs and desires and what their issues are, so that you can be together with one another, really understanding what those enlarged interests are and being able to see where the other person is coming from. And that'll be really important for the next part, because after you have enlarged the interest, so it's not just the self-interest, but you're enlarging the interest and you're being clear about what you can agree and disagree on, right? Because that's the other thing too. There are things that you may agree to, but there's things that you're going to disagree to as well. And that's the next step in the process, is getting to that enlightened set, right? So as we continue to move forward, it's not just about interests of ourselves or listening to the other person and getting them all out. It's then looking at how to make this a more enlightened conversation. This is where you start to list all the things that you can agree to and all of the things that you cannot agree to. So you basically come up with two lists: those that you can agree to and those things that you cannot agree to. And just like in conflict resolution, when you look for those common grounds or shared interests, it'll often create an aha moment for the parties involved. Well, they'll realize that there's more that they share as far as common interest than against. So if you look at what Lenny did initially in his walk in the woods back in the Cold War, nobody wanted the world to be completely destroyed, right? So everyone could agree upon that human beings are really important and we don't want to kill everybody on the entire planet. So that was a place that everyone could come around. Then how to get to the next set of questions, becomes the negotiation points. Same thing as when you're negotiating that salary with the other individual. If you both understand where you're coming from and you have listened to the enriched set of perspectives, right, interests, then you can get to the enlightened set of interests, where you can at that point share, listen, I can only go this high with my salary because of the HR policies like I mentioned, but I do have some options for you. A signing bonus, an annual bonus that you'll get in a year and a half if you do a good performance, or a relocation bonus, or we can adjust your hours. And then the candidate can come back and say, well, okay, a signing bonus would allow me to have what I need for the entire year. The bonus structure allows me to continue what my base is on a regular basis annually. So I think I can come to this, and you can come to terms with one another. And so that's what you really want to be able to do. Understand where you agree, understand where there's disagreement and what you can't budge on, because that's the area that you will have then the collaborative problem solving to get to your final state, which is where all of the interests are out on the table, and you come up with a solved problem that you have worked together on in order to make sure that both of you have a best alternative, that there's some type of win-win. Not that you don't have to give. You sometimes have to give. That's all about the bargaining, right? That's where you get a little bit of compromise around. What can you compromise, what you can't. And being clear about that just allows for good communication, so that at some point you can get to a new place where your interests become aligned. Now remember, you started that walk in the woods, you were very far apart. You both had your own self-interests and didn't understand where the other person was coming from. After you enriched those interests by listening to the other individual, you could then move on to the enlightenment phase, where you could be clear about what you agree upon, that's common for you, in those small areas where there's disagreement, and then be able to work collaboratively, problem solving together to be creative and find a number of different options for moving forward. And that could be anything from, one person compromising pretty much the whole way. Perhaps your son says, okay, I get it. You're saying this for me in my best interest because I need to do well in school and my grades are not as high as we all would like them to be. Or perhaps it's you who compromised and said, those special occasions, we can certainly allow you to stay out till midnight. And in 6 months, if things are going well with school, let's talk again. And maybe we'll be able to let you stay out until 11 o'clock on weekends instead of 10 o'clock or 12 o'clock. So there's a lot of different options that are out there. I may not have made total sense there, but I think you get the picture. There needs to be some compromise and negotiation. But once you become enlightened and you're working together to get to a place where you can honor the things that you agree upon, that's shared upon, and then be able to bargain to get to a better place that you both have at least some good alternative to, that you can commit to and agree to, that's what you're really trying to do. And that aligned set of interests is what you really want to nail at the end of this. If the parties are having a hard time with that, your job is to guide and coach them, again, around how things are very similar and there's very few things that they totally disagree upon that are non-negotiable. So how do they manage through that and come up with as many options as possible so that they can pick the best one? Always best if you can get them to do the problem solving. You can step in and just kind of guide and help them as you need to. But if they create the solution, they're more likely to also honor that final discussion and honor where the conclusion of all of this goes. And so that's the last thing that you want to do, is make sure that you tidy up and tie up any loose ends. So once the negotiation is completed and you've finished your walk in the woods, you want to go back and make sure that you captured everything in writing. That way you can get it back to the parties, everyone can look at it again, make sure that everyone's on the same page and is agreeable and agrees again to the things that you have shared interests around, and now where you have aligned interests around, and be able to move forward with that solution to your problem, your BATNA. I hope you found this helpful, and if you need more on leadership essentials or on personal development, just check out our website at DeleanInstitute.com for more information and resources for you. Have a terrific day.